Calling the February 19th, 2025 Public Works Commission meeting to order. First item is the agenda itself.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Next up is public forum. Rob, do we have anyone online for public forum?
Members of the public should be using the raise your hand function if you do want to speak during public forum. Thanks, Chapin. If you're online and wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. And at this time, there's no one signed up.
Excellent. Looks like there's nobody here in person for public forum. Moving on to the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye for myself. Excellent. And thank you to staff also just for the North Street stuff. I know that's been something the commission has talked about, particularly Vice Chair Fox running in the neighborhood, so I appreciate that coming forward.
Indeed.
Next up is the UPWP application.
Oh,
sorry.
it's
No. Bond. Sorry. I just flipped to the next page, so.
Great. All right. Did we get approval of the consent agenda?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
We did, yes. Great. All right. Chapin Spencer, Director of Public Works. I am excited to have an open discussion with the commission tonight. You all have heard a lot from us over the last 6 or so months on the various capital needs in our aging city. And one of the things that I have committed to in my annual goals with you all is to figure out how to close the capital funding gaps in the city. And we've been very appreciative of the time that you've given us and the city council, the NPAs, our wastewater tours that have brought us to a point where the council unanimously placed 3 ballot items on the Town Meeting Day 2025 ballot. And I have with me tonight Division Director Megan Moyer, who can speak to the 2 water-oriented bonds, the lake bond and the water bond, and Ashley Parker, who's the Capital Program Director at the CT office, is available online as well to speak to the general obligation bond. And so we're pleased to be able to just jump right into a Q&A. I guess I will give Megan and Ashley a brief moment to tee up these topics, but then we really want to hear from you and how we can answer your questions. And if friendly to the commission, we would welcome an opportunity, if you feel so inclined, to support the bond items through some motion tonight. It's not required, but it could be an indication of your feeling of support after having gone through the process with us. With that, I'll turn it over to Megan first.
Thanks, Chapin, and thanks for all of the various meeting minutes and hours that we've spent talking about this. We were very happy to receive the council's unanimous approval. I think based on sort of where we started, all the work we did with them and with all of the public bodies to try to get this down to the sort of right size for this particular stage, while still making it hopefully transparently clear that there will be more work and that we're not going to magically disappear into the background and not have to come back for potential future asks. As I've spoken with you, we've had some good ongoing conversations with the state about pollution control grant funding. You know, we estimate that our project, should it stay, the wastewater project, should it stay around this $124, $127 million price tag, is technically eligible for probably something in the realm of $40 million worth of pollution control grant. The challenge being that the state doesn't have that amount of pollution control grant funding, despite the fact that we've been talking about this for a long time. But it does sort of, it does make me believe that we are going to be highly eligible for the grant funding that does exist. We're continuing conversations about affordability programs and which turns of the wheel we may see for FY26 versus further years out. But just to know that there's some continued evolution in what may be possible with regard to making sure that our water resources bills remain affordable. That being that we don't want any customers to ever have to choose between meeting an essential need and paying that water bill. I think with that, I'll probably turn it over to Ashley. And
Yes, Ashley, feel free to tee up the co-bond.
Thanks, guys. And it's nice to see you all. Sorry I can't be there in person. If I'm sure you've seen a lot about the 20 million general obligation bond that we've been talking about for our city's general fund capital needs. These are for all of those assets that really fall in our fleet, our streets and sidewalks and bridges, our transportation, traffic safety type projects, our parks and our city buildings. We have years of deferred maintenance and need across all asset categories at this point. So this bond is really important in terms of helping us take better care and make our general fund infrastructure sustainable and resilient. This bond is proposed to be spent over the course of the next 3 fiscal years if we are able to go after it. This would help us basically hit an annual mark of about $10 million a year for general fund capital revenues, which currently, if we do not get this bond, the general fund capital program only has $2 million that it's able to access via the city charter annually. And that would significantly limit the amount of work that we can do towards our general fund capital infrastructure. So this bond is really important in helping us get closer to achieving, hitting our targets, hitting our goals. I'm happy to go into more detail in terms of each asset category and what the needs are, because each asset has different needs and different goals. But at the end of the day, the tax impact is looking to be the maximum that anybody would see on their tax bill at about $12 a month for a $500,000 home, or about $140 a year. And obviously with this kind of a bond, we're expecting to pay, it'll decrease over time with a payback period of 20 years. So that is what it's looking like as tax wise. So I don't know if that's enough, but I'm happy to answer more questions and go into more details on all of the assets that we have.
Would anyone like to go first?
I can start. Thanks so much, Ashley. What if this doesn't pass? You mentioned that, then we're kind of limited. We only have $2 million. What really are the impacts that the city will face if this doesn't pass? And then I guess I'm looking at like kind of what that triage tree means for the city and what's next.
Yeah, that's a great question. The worst case scenario for the capital program is truly we only have $2 million to spend on needs. In some of my presentations that are out and about, and I think Chapin might have shared this one with you guys tonight, but I do have a table that shows what $2 million could get us per asset class. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do all those things per asset class. We'd have to divvy it up. But truly, we have a $3 million need in our fleet right now. We've deferred fleet for the last 2 fiscal years on the general fund side due to financial constraints. And so that's really, $2 million is not even get us. It won't get us close to hitting what we need to just replace our fleet that are deferred and pass over their years of service. So that's just one example. Our streets and sidewalks as well, it's going to limit what we can, put towards to fund for those assets. And we've got goals of $3 million or 3 miles a year of sidewalks, which is $3 million a year. So again, $2 million isn't going to go a long way in getting what we need with our sidewalk replacement program. And similarly with streets, it's about $4.8 million a year of need, with a goal of 4 miles a year of street paving replacement. And in our buildings, we have at least $10 million of need in our city buildings right now. And that, so 2 million is, again, not going to get us very far. If this bond does not pass, we've talked about trying to go about again and try this again. But it's really important, you know, for us to try to get this additional revenue source so that we can do more of the work that we know we need to do. In addition, I guess the other thing that I will mention is part of the city's FY26 budgeting process. You know, we're really working hard. Like these bond asks, what's in my plan right now for this ask is really focusing on our critical need. So these are things that we absolutely need to do. These are not Band-Aids. These are actual needs that will have a huge impact on quality of life for residents and level of services that our staff can provide. But in addition, we're also working very hard with the FY26 budgeting process to really do a better job of incorporating our operation and maintenance. So as we think about all of our assets, really incorporating annually what we need to do to take care of those assets on the maintenance side before it becomes a major capital need, replacement, or major capital project, which would hit my list and affect this budget. So we're trying to do a better job of over time sustainably planning for these things, in addition to also reducing the burden to the over any future bonding or any future capital revenue. Oh, and I was going to say, sorry, my my brain short-circuited. Also revenue. We're trying to identify additional sources of revenue too for the capital program, as right now, as I said before, we only have an annual borrowing amount of $2 million that we can access to fund this program outside of any dedicated tax dollars that might come into and hit different assets in the capital plan. So I hope that's helpful.
That is, you teased with that additional revenue streams. Any ideas, or were you able to share anything?
You know, I think we're still in the really early stages. I will say we have a new director of finance in the city who's been really great at helping me. What I've always wanted to build up for the capital program is a reserve. We have no general fund capital reserve. So creating a separate pot of cash versus bond proceeds would be really huge and would give us some flexibility to be able to do some other types of financing. You know, we've had issues historically with lease payments. You can't use bond proceeds to cover lease payments, so that comes out of the general fund. And so, you know, that has been one area where a lot of larger communities who have really active and strong capital programs have a reserve of some kind, and we do not have that. So that would be something that I would already been working out with him. I'm not sure how that's going to end, you know, shake out with FY26, but that would be one. And then, you know, there's other ways before my time, there was a white paper that they did for the sustainable infrastructure of the city, where it was the first 10-year capital plan, and they identified opportunities for, I think it was either the gross receipts tax or something, where we were talking about bringing in revenue that would come from our visitors to the city who also use our infrastructure that then needs to be repaired or replaced. And I don't know why that didn't go anywhere, but it's still something that I think would be interesting to think about how we might do that. But with so many needs in the city, you know, we have limited funds and you can only use them for so many things. But those are a couple of things that I've had in the back of my mind. And obviously partnerships are going to be huge in the coming years with, we don't know what's going to happen with grant funds. So, you know, working, you know, locally with whoever wants to help us get more work done and keep our infrastructure in a place where everybody can use it and access it and feel safe and comfortable. You know, I think that will be a big part of the next steps too.
You know, also talking about the partnerships and recognizing that certainly federal grants under the current regime might look different, will look different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley, for touching on a number of those. Alternate funding sources can include as well impact fees. We're looking at how our impact fees are charged. We are, through the 2016 Sustainable Infrastructure Plan that Ashley had mentioned, the institutional partners UVM and Champlain College committed to multi-year payments that enabled us to borrow in excess of $6 million for general fund capital. There's grants, there's tax increment financing, there's our, our traffic fund, if we can nurse that back to health. So, there are tools in our toolbox, but there's no silver bullet.
Great, thanks. That's all.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Montano?
Yeah, I'll stick with the general obligation bond for now. And my question is about how this money will be allocated to specific projects, especially on the level of streets and sidewalks. I understand there is this critical need, right, for certain things, but among what's left over, how will the city and I guess the capital committee decide exactly where the rest of the money will go, and then how it's actually going to be implemented on the level of individual streets or neighborhoods where there is need?
Yeah, so in the same presentation, I think Chapin, you had pulled that, or somebody pulled that up. There's a slide that shows percentage breakdown. Currently, we're talking about percentages. Nothing in the plan that you see is guaranteed funding, just to allow for flexibility for emergent needs that pop up in the fiscal year. But this is currently what we're thinking. We know we need to set aside a minimum amount for fleet at the very least. And then across the board, this is what we're looking at to spread across the different asset classes that we've been talking about. There is the capital committee review piece of this. Right now we've requested departments to submit FY26 funding requests based on, these categories we've been talking about for this bond. The committee will have some say. We've also, what I haven't talked about yet, but I've talked about in all my presentations, we have a really cool new interactive capital plan map that if you haven't gone to it, I would please encourage you to do that, because part of the goal of that map is you'll see the next 5 to 6 years of capital need that's currently in the approved capital plan, and where things are that we know on the ground across all asset classes. And I'm hoping that what we can use that for is we have identified projects, identified needs that we can start from as a place for us to evaluate, start our prioritization of how we will fund work in the coming years. And then, another piece of that map, which I think is hugely important moving forward, we haven't done this before. There is a survey link that residents should go and check out and take, because we want to hear what projects we don't know about, what things we aren't aware of, and then that is going to turn into a data layer that'll be added to this map. We're currently going through what that survey has told us so far. So that will be an ongoing survey to just update the map at the community level, so we know how that oversets with all of our other known needs and priorities across the city in terms of our general fund capital assets. So there's a lot of different ways that we'll be looking at actually allocating the funding. This will be part of the FY26 budget process as well. So, council will be looking at this budget, at the allocations, at the projects. So I think there'll be a lot of opportunity for interaction. Did I answer everything?
Yes, that was outstanding. Thank you.
You're
And so I guess my follow up more towards Director Spencer, right, is what might the Department of Public Works be requesting funding for in this coming cycle, and how will those sidewalk and street needs be prioritized?
Right, thank you. Yes, I serve on the General Fund Capital Committee, as does City Engineer Laura Wheelock, and we will be putting together requests for paving, for sidewalks, for the transportation planning that you saw on the list, as well as local matches for bridges. I can't overstate how limiting it would be to try to operate the general fund's capital budget on the $2 million that were authorized. We need over $4 million as a local match, well, around $3.8 million for a local match for the Winooski River Bridge. So that's 2 years of the $2 million alone, much less any other need in the city. And I've appreciated the capital program support of that Winooski River Bridge project. It's over $80 million with the associated intersection improvements, and we have a very small portion thanks to federal and state participation, as well as City of Winooski. So we will be putting in asks for paving, for sidewalks, for traffic safety, and for local matches.
All right, thank you.
Great, and I guess I'll just add on, I think, I think the items that are on the capital plan related to stuff that we look at, I think the commission certainly would love to see the input that's coming into this public stuff, as well as all the conversations I think we've had as a commission. And so I think whatever way and the timing can work out where the capital committee is sort of deciding on that, I think the commission would certainly appreciate an opportunity to provide comment on that, and particularly on the things that we have some level of oversight on.
That's a good idea, and I know Ashley's interested in sharing that information as well. So once we get through town meeting day and are able to look at how best to allocate those funds, hopefully once the voters approve it, then we can have that conversation with the commission.
Other commissioners, questions? Commissioner Davis? Excuse me.
Yeah, thanks both of you for the great presentations. I do, and you'll have to forgive my ignorance, or hopefully you do. How is the amount of the bond that we ask for determined? So essentially I'm asking why this specific amount, why the $20 million and not, say, something that covers the full need, for instance?
That's a great question, especially on the general fund side. So one of my slides in my presentation also talks about debt capacity, the city's debt capacity policy, which we have to review and analyze every year. And we have to share debt with the school district. And so it's really important to make sure we fit the amount of debt that we take out falls within our debt policy. And if it doesn't, then we have issues. So this ask, because of the amount of principal and interest we paid out that we didn't expect to, we paid more out over the last several years than we expected originally. And then also with the growth in the grand list, it's given us a little bit of a gap. But that's why you're not seeing like a larger ask, understanding we have like a huge amount of need. This is what we feel is a reasonable ask given the space that we have available in that gap. Of what's available debt-wise for us to ask for. So that's how we got to this number.
And Ashley, do you want to add a little bit about the context of annual authorizations that we might ask for in the future and how this could be a bridge?
Right. Yeah, so something that we started discussing months ago at this point, but was increasing. So I've talked about the annual borrowing limit being at $2 million. We think that if we had at least $10 million a year, we could get closer to a better, more sustainable place. And so part of the work that we're going to be doing after this town meeting day is gearing up to talk about changing the charter language to be, instead of 2, be 10, like a 10 million borrowing limit. So that it would be more in line with what the actual needs of the city are. It also, I had all these numbers a while back, so I apologize. But based on inflation numbers, this was a more realistic number that fits better with how things have changed since I think it was 2013 was the last time we changed the borrowing limit. It went from 1 million to 2. And so this is something that we would need to go back to voters and discuss as well. And so as we look over time and the spend out and the reduction in the amount of debt that we have, we were targeting this FY29 years. So this general obligation bond of 20 million, we would look to spend out over the next 3 fiscal years, so 26, 27, 28. And if we could get a charter change for 10 million, that would hopefully go into effect in a phased progression starting in FY29. So we'd go from 2 to hopefully 5, and then 2 or 3 years after that would, hopefully go up to 10. So that's our current plan, and something that we'll be working on over the next, 6 to 12 months probably.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for all that context. There probably is a reason in like city in law or something that I'm not aware of, but is there a reason we don't aim for like a percentage of something rather than like a fixed certain dollar amount?
Well, I think in this case, we have a limit that we can't go past, and so that's really the threshold at this point. So,
The $10 million changing the charter that you mentioned.
oh, well, I was referring to the debt capacity and the $20 million number, but the $10 million number is related more to actual changes in costs and what I see over time being a more realistic revenue target for the capital plan. So that's how we arrived at the $10 million number rather than using a percentage.
There have been some conversations, because we were talking about putting these charter changes even on this ballot, but we pulled back from that. And there was conversation about setting a new limit, but then having that limit update with like CPI so that we don't have to keep going back to the voters. If we could
Right.
get the voters to approve that, then in the case of the general fund, that would cover a lot of the needs. Interestingly, like BED has a annual limit, water resources does not, and that is one of the things we're also looking at in the future is having water resources have a authorized annual limit that the voters would approve one time that would kind of put us on this different path once we do this big project of then having enough money to just keep up with stuff and not continuously having to come back for these giant projects one at a time, right? To kind of just have this ongoing resource. But I don't know where we landed because again, we kind of punted on the charter change questions, but there were conversations about how to bake in language so that we can just get off the treadmill of.
That's right. And I think, Jacob, if your question also was related to why don't we look at the kind of net value of assets and do a percentage of that net value every year as a borrowing opportunity to have a sustainable level. One of the pieces that makes that a little hard is just each asset type has different availability of other funding sources. If we were the only funding source, maybe we'd say, 5% of our complete asset value we'd borrow every year. But streets and sidewalks, bridges are able to receive grant funding at a higher percentage than municipal buildings, for example. So we could go through a calculation like that. What I'll say is, every year our general fund capital budget is usually $30 to $40 million. That's been high last couple of years because large projects like the Champlain Parkway. But the general fund component is, like Ashley's saying, $10 million or so. We're just so successful in getting other people's money that our capital fund and budget is actually in order of magnitude greater than the local share.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, both of those are essentially what I was asking about. And yeah, I see where it'd be tough to do like a weighted average for everything that would need to be updated every year with different assets and all that. I think that, I guess I had one more question about impact fees. I think, Chapin, that you mentioned. Would the commission be the, determiners of that ultimately, or is that something that has to go through the city council, and, is there a bigger process?
Ashley, do you want to start off with this?
Sure. If you're asking about how we will implement new fees, I actually just looked at how this is going to potentially look today. So it will require some changes to existing ordinance, and we'll have to be working also with the planning commission and the city council to basically implement any of the recommendations from the current study that we've been working on. Use of the impact fees, there is a process for that currently. It's, I don't know how much it will change once we get to that point, but the study, in terms of the transportation fee that I think you're probably more interested in, but maybe Megan speak to the water ones too, but the way that we worked out the current proposed fee is based on a list of projects that I developed with the tech services team, that our consultant reviewed and confirmed eligibility. And so we have a list of projects that could receive impact fees once they would be implemented. And so that's kind of how it's done. It's a whole big thing, and there's statute that governs it, but it is based on it is based on a project list that's been defined. And there is going to be some flexibility in that too, I guess I'll say as well, because we understand and we worked with our consultant. We'll work to put in language where we'll try to make it so council would annually be able to update this list depending on how things change, because we know things change over time. We're also hoping that this funding will be able to offset or be used as a local match for some of these projects that need local match. So it'll be that component. So anyways, that's the gist, I think.
And then I realized I had one more question, which is prioritization within a class of asset. So like say sidewalks on Conger Ave, which like is the street that I live on, there's a sidewalk on both sides of the street. So for instance, I just wonder if like prioritizing away one side of the street there, if there's this large deficit to be able to maintain sidewalks so that another street that only has a sidewalk on one side can be adequately helped. I'm sure you all take that into account, but I'm just kind of curious how that is done, maybe with other things as well besides just sidewalks.
I think that's a great question. Is there somebody from Tech Services there to talk more about the sidewalk?
Yes.
Sidewalk, whatever.
I think the short answer is that we do have a methodology that factors in both the physical condition of the sidewalk as well as the utilization of the sidewalk. And I'm happy to forward that along. The commission, prior to your tenure, has gotten some briefings on this. And we have added equity elements into it to make sure that if it's close to a senior center or a school or vulnerable populations, that it gets more value, so we're not just doing the worst sidewalk that might be in the middle of a suburban style location and not receive much use. But happy to get that to you. We do take the prioritization seriously because we want to have the maximum impact for the investment.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that'd be awesome if you could send that.
And I'll also just add, since the map is up again, we do have the data that DPW gets from, I think it's consultant, that shows the pavement condition index. So you can look at that too and kind of see what things are looking like on the ground. So that's one of the factors.
Awesome.
Didn't see what staff was pulling up, but that is the great documentation of what I was just describing.
Yeah, that's awesome. One, not really a question, but one note that I have is that I think people often assume that whatever is being asked for by a government is what is like exactly what's needed, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so I think the reality is that we need more than $20 million. We're just limited to $20 million. Right. And I think people would be, it'd feel less like haggling maybe to voters if there was a stronger indication of what was needed in reference to what's being asked for.
Great. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Barr, anything?
Sure, I'll just say, I've poured over this information quite a bit as of late. I think one of the important things that I've had conversations with people in my neighborhoods about is what's the actual impact, not of if this passes, all the improvements that's going to happen, but on their tax bills. And I think that you've done a really good job of showing, based on a property value, what that would be. And I think those small bites are probably what's going to give this some traction. So those are the things to emphasize, at least with the folks that I talked to. But I think great job.
Thank you.
I guess I'll say one thing, not related to the bonds necessarily, but about those potential future charter changes for water resources to be able to borrow consistently, to do upgrades consistently. Just like the size of these bonds is because we've had to defer this maintenance for so long. And so if we can avoid doing that, that is, to me, super important, and I would just love for this to be a continuing conversation for us at the commission and with the public, because, yeah, it just feels like that's one of the big roots that is in the nest of what of this affordability problem is, right? So, yeah, I think that's the only comment I have.
I just have two quick things. One is just on the affordability piece. Does, and apologies if it isn't any other materials that just maybe are somewhere else. I know that it talks about the rate impacts for, assessed value of homes. I'm curious for folks that are income sensitized and they have the state program. Is there an easy way to sort of show for folks who are income sensitized how that may change what they're paying for property taxes? I know it's so individual per person, but I'm just curious if there's a way to sort of show that, given that I forget that the large percentage of folks across the state are receive those benefits from the state.
On the general obligation bond side, I don't believe we have a good way of factoring in like the renter's rebate, as that is variable based on an individual's situation. On the water side with the affordability program, we know if a person has a certain threshold and qualifies for a program that their fixed fee will be waived and what the value of that discount would be.
But the mayor's office is running the tax fairness committee, which is supposed to be looking at, because I am assuming the GO bond would be hitting the municipal tax portion, which is not the portion that is discounted with those state programs. It's the education tax. Right. And so they're trying to figure out how they might be able to, my understanding is, address the municipal portion.
Gotcha.
And interestingly, that's one of the other mechanisms that I'm examining, because to the extent that the city gets the list of who gets the state rebates, I'm looking at whether or not I could use that as a like an income verification surrogate for an expansion of our program, because that tranche of people are making more than the people we're currently helping. But I haven't worked out all the details, and I still don't know exactly how we would get access to the renter rebate data.
Okay.
I have a call that I need to put in to just figure out, like, would the state partner with us where, like, as a once-off, if somebody applies to us, could we call up and be like, hey, does this person, yes or no, like, this person has given us permission to ask this question and for you to say whether they do or don't receive a rebate. So those are some of, I think, the creative ways we're gonna have to figure out without launching our whole own income verification program.
Right. No, that makes sense. The last piece is just, since we're 10 days away from the vote, if my calendar is correct, any sort of last, like, outreach pieces that the city's sort of doing that you want to highlight? I think that'd be great just to get that on the record.
So hopefully in everyone's mailbox late last week, over the weekend, or early this week, you received a postcard that in as much space as possible, we let you know as a city what's coming before you on the town meeting day ballot. So that was a big project cross-departmental that we worked on to make sure every resident was going to be informed. Hopefully we hit everybody. Would love to know if folks didn't get it or any feedback on that. We are waiting for another set of ads from BCA, who've been incredibly generous with their time and helping design some pieces of advertising material. Those are going to be going out on social media. You hopefully saw our recent water ad that was out advertising our last, unfortunately canceled because of the 16 inches of snow, the wastewater tour. So that went out as a big last minute, or last kind of major effort. But really right now we're going to be on social media. We're considering other ad buys. You may have seen us in the North Ave News, but we decided not to go with digital or print on 7 days, and reserving all of our remainder of money for social media, because we found it to be incredibly effective at reaching people.
I saw the last tour that got canceled a lot on social media, so that was showed up.
Would have been the Poopsicle tour.
Yeah, that did really well with ads. So yeah.
Great.
say one more thing?
Yeah.
I just have to comment, the water droplet, how your rates will be affected.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. I forgot to give thanks the credit. She sent me a little, was it an email or a voicemail? I can't remember.
It was an email, because I was dreaming about how to
Yes.
represent that. I love it. I mean, I love it because I thought about it.
I love it because it was my idea. It was Peggy O'Neill Vimalco's idea, and I should have put.
But no, like as
I don't
as
see
I
your
was
name
looking,
down.
I forgot that I said that, and I was like, oh my God.
I also forgot until just now. I'm so tired.
I was like, I love this. This is really familiar to me.
Right, and I guess to just remind and convey to people that it's meant, like, lots can change, but that's meant to be conservative, right? If we get more people hooking up, that's more revenue. If we get grant money, that will bring it down. I just, would rather say the worst case scenario and then hopefully stick our landing on something else. I have to say, we didn't get question number 2, which is the question we wanted, but we did get the turd question. The lake bond is the number 3 question. Third.
Our French Canadian.
We're a little punchy after night meetings, in case you haven't noticed.
Gonna say.
Well, I
Sounds
had
like
to
my
process
grandfather
not
talking.
getting question number 2, so you could, if people wanted to say yes to number 2, but I moved on to the.
Well, I think that's it for questions from the commission. I think that's, yeah.
Great.
Do we need to
If,
do another comment on this item?
I don't think so.
No, there's no voting.
Yeah, there's no voting.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to.
Oh, yes.
Support. To support both, all 3 bonds.
Questions 2, 3, and 4 on your town meeting day ballots, by the
Yes,
way.
there you go.
Number 2,
Mail them in this weekend if you haven't already.
third, and
Third and fourth.
14.
There's a motion on the table. Anybody would like
I'll
to second?
second the motion.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye for myself. I think the commission definitely would like to include that we support this
Thank you
in
so
whatever way
much.
possible to
Great
voters,
job.
to city council. Thank you.
It's always.
That means a lot to us, staff especially, and we will talk with city team about how best to utilize that vote of confidence, so thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And thanks, Megan and Ashley, for joining us yet again.
Moving on to UPWP. Unified Work. Planning Work Plan. There you go.
I had to look at it.
Probably abstain from this one, because it's like, I'm gonna be doing
It's just
the
me.
work.
Good evening. You know, I had a chance to say this at the Walk by Council last month, and I think I'll say it to you guys. Thank you for being here and being commissioners. I mean, this is, it's Wednesday night. You all could be at home, snuggled up on the couch, but you're here volunteering your time, and that's important to do. This is where the real work happens, some of the drudgery. So I'm going to try and elucidate what UPWP is. I don't have Chapin's oratory skills, so I got to write things down. So I'm here to present our proposed projects for inclusion in the FY26 Unified Planning Work Program and request your support. What is UPWP? Some folks know what it is, obviously. We do have CCRPC staff here who really know what it is. So UPWP is an annual work plan managed by the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, the CCRPC, and that helps fund planning efforts throughout the region. We work with our external partners as well as what we got going on in the city. Primarily supports transportation related projects, but also assists with some land use and stormwater planning. So these funds are for planning only, right? And the funding is largely federal. I could confirm that before, of course. And this helps with studies, data collection, conceptual designs, do not cover city staff time, detailed engineering, construction, or capital projects. Process requires that all project application receive local approval before the end of March, so the CCRPC can review and finalize the UPWP in the spring. Now, the application process has some interesting gymnastics. We already put our applications in for the grants, so it's kind of wonky that we're coming to you now, but that's kind of how the process works, and so we're here to discuss it anyways. What are we requesting this year? Well, we have 10 ongoing UPWP projects, and this year we're requesting support on 2 new initiatives. One, which won't cost the city any money, is technical assistance. So we've been finalizing the Battery Street Corridor scoping study, and I'm hoping to, next month, we'll preview, no spoilers, we'll bring the Battery Street scoping study for the commission's look over. And so, but what we want to look at in terms of technical assistance is what can we do between now and that implementation, because that's going to be a large project, big ticket project, and an important one. I think Battery Street project's going to be a real important project. And we've talked about it some here. So the request seeks technical assistance to refine the intersection design, traffic flow, signal timing, how that'll interact with any bike lane integration as part of an interim solution. No local match required there. But the citywide transportation plan, that's the big one. And that's going to be a multi-year effort to develop a comprehensive transportation plan for Burlington. Our current transportation plan is from 2011. Not to be mistaken with Plan BTV Walk Bike. Sometimes folks get those things confused, and I understand that. We have a lot of plans. Plan BTV Walk Bike is all about walking, biking, and rolling. Transportation plan is bigger, larger view. It involves our partners with GMT, vehicles, and looking at what's going to be happening over the next several decades. So you have a lot of housing that's projected, and that's all going to be components. So the plan will be aligned with also the city's comprehensive plan update, which is led by Charles Dillard in the Office of City Planning, and we're also working with parks. We're not doing this as silos. That was something that was requested by the TOOC. We talked to them quite a bit about it, and also parks. We're all working together. The mayor's office is also involved. So key component will focus on park access, ensuring equitable connectivity to Burlington parks. So there'll be funding request here is $50,000 for transportation component, which we budgeted for, and $10,000 from Penny for Parks as the parks component. So that's kind of where the budget and the funds are going to come from that. And so the other requests are the recurring requests, the pavement condition index, which is done every year, and then also our traffic counts and bike counts, and that helps us track trends and kind of evaluate the impact of some of our traffic calming efforts. So why this matters? These projects are critical for guiding Burlington's future transportation investments, and we really got to start looking into the future, folks. If we're bringing housing into Burlington, we're talking about a lot of housing, and we're densifying neighborhoods. I mean, we're looking at, right over here down the street, Seacourt. That's going to be a big development, a lot of units. That's great. Housing is great, but that's going to be more people. That's going to be more cars, more vehicles on the road, and obviously there's going to be impacts to our utilities. Friends over here, water resources. E-bone's connected to the ankle bone, right? Everything is connected here, right? So we respectfully request the commission approve a motion to support these projects under the fiscal year 2026 Unified Plan Work Plan. Your approval allows us to move forward in securing funds and working with our external and internal partners and aligning these projects with our broader transportation plan. Thank you. Welcome any questions.
Great, thank you.
There was a communication in the packet that went over this in more detail.
Yes.
And feel free, happy to answer any questions.
Great.
And the full applications were part of that as well, so the public can vet it.
Great. Commissioner questions? Commissioner Montano?
Yeah, so you'd mentioned that most of the money allocated to this CCRPC comes from federal dollars.
Right.
How do you anticipate this program might change in the future? And how is the city aiming to ensure that the projects that have already started are going to come to completion regardless of what's going on at different houses, other bodies of government?
Right, I mean, yeah, name the situation. There's a change in federal administration. We had the TAC meeting, the Transportation Advisory Committee, which I chair, meets once a month, and we discussed that very topic 2 weeks ago. The executive director of the CCRPC commented on that. There's a lot of things that we know. There's a lot of things we don't know. And we are looking at what is it that we can do with existing grants, existing grant agreements, existing awards that don't have a grant agreement, our Safe Streets for All grant, with the equity index tool. You know, okay, well, how do we navigate the system? And the honest answer is we don't know yet. Certain federal grants are secure, and we know that, and those funds are secure. Others, it's, you know, like the Safe Streets for All program, just to name it again, has major components that deal with equity. Major components that as you apply for these grants that are baked into these agreements that exist. And so, yeah, it's hard to know how are we moving forward. And projects like Plan BTV, Walk Bike Action Plan, we've talked about how do we word things in the plan now so that we're staying true to our values and what it is that we want for our projects, but also making sure that we have plans that will make it accessible to grant funds, federal grant funds. It's a good question.
Yep. I don't envy your position. Best of luck, right, as things, you know, become more clear.
Yes.
Phil, can I add one quick addition to
Go for
your?
it, please do.
So the CCRPC planning funds are formula funds, so they're not the same. And I think it's a different bucket than the discretionary grant programs that you may have seen.
Yes.
And so it's still, as Philip said, there's a lot
Sure.
of questions and uncertainty, but formula funds, they're super complicated, but you know, sort of different and maybe perhaps more difficult to like untangle than the discretionary program. So just
Yes.
that's what I'm telling myself anyway.
Me too. I had those details way back. Way back. That was 2 weeks ago. So.
Other commissioners? Commissioner, question?
Yeah, I think I have to be careful, right? I was trying to pull up some information that I had on like the federal pause, especially from from Department of Transportation, and there's actually specific language from the White House, but I was looking at my work email right now and I'm toggling all over the place, that says specifically that we need to support, federal dollars need to be distributed for all Americans. And if, as soon as I finish speaking, I'll pull up that language, because I feel like that suits a lot of the mission that we want to do. I mean, you know, personally, my work tools that were funded by taxpayer dollars have disappeared, all these fund maps. I'm sure you've used some of them as well. So I think it isn't always just changing the lexicon to comply with the federal changes, but looking at what is it that we can and cannot say, to be sure that under whatever funding guidelines that we don't trigger anything that would reject us from funding. I'm trying to thread a needle here.
I understand exactly what you're saying. What I would say is that as engineers and planners, we will look at the criteria that the federal government lays out, and we will find a way to capture dollars that we need based on the criteria that they give to us. And that's what we'll do.
Well said.
That's great. No, I appreciate that. I can't find it right now. I feel like we're in these unknown times, and there's lack of definition and there's capriciousness at very, very high levels. And I trust that everyone's doing the best they can to move forward, thread the needle, and get stuff done. So, thanks. Yeah.
Cooler heads will prevail.
Thanks.
They will.
Do you know that the, what is it called, the Texacoda Axis? The language in Department of Transportation funding says that they will prioritize funding to areas that have for areas that have higher than the national average birth rate and higher than the national average marriage rate, and Texaco all the way up to the Dakotas. So, yeah. All right, well, I'm like Debbie Downer right now, so anyone want to bring us up?
Any other commissioners, questions on this particular?
I guess I just have a quick comment that probably is already being done, but many variables are correlated, and so there's, of course, an opening for proxies that might achieve positive outcomes.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
So, yeah,
We're singing from the same sheet.
Well said.
Yes.
that's it.
Yep.
Yes.
Commissioner
I
Boyle?
have something positive to say.
There we go. Vice Chair Fox.
This is something that I've said in previous meetings related to when Public Works took over enforcement of the parking lots. I love to see the cross-departmental collaboration. I think it's great. And so it's really nice to see that happening here with the transportation plan. And, you know, I think we've heard a lot about wanting to see some higher level goals regarding transportation, and so I think the transportation plan is timely, and yeah, so I think, yeah, particularly seeing departments work together and not silo is really important. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Commissioner Barr?
Yeah, sure, I'll just make a comment as well to try and bring it on the upbeat. This is a great plan, and I think that we know it needs to be done, and we've known for years. And one of the mantras that I try to follow is that in uncertain times, you find those certainty things that are real and need value added, and focus on those. And whether the money follows later or not, it will someday. You know, we'll get through this. I think that you've done a great job putting this together, and the CCRPC overseeing this I think this is great stuff.
Yeah. What I would say is things seem to happen right on time. They do. And what I would say to earlier statements is we're projecting, the state has a goal of quite a bit of housing for Chittenden County. That's no joke. So that's going to be access to a lot of federal dollars. And there are lots of grants, and there are lots of ways to get to those grants. You've got a team of really smart people.
I'll just add, I guess, jumping on the positive note, I think the planning documents are great, and I think folks really want to see stuff happen, and I don't want to miss that the traffic counting request or the ATRs are part of the implementation piece of all of this, and like that's either the data to get those projects built or done, and or just the post data of those projects. So I think I just want to I know it's a small piece of that, but I think for the stuff that all of us care about and ask a lot of questions about, I think that's the piece that just want to tie it together.
Well said.
Such a planner.
Yeah, it's like you know what you're talking about.
This is an action item.
Can I make a motion to approve or support staff's proposed projects under the FY 2026 Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP?
Second.
I will second the motion, exactly what Jim said.
Excellent.
And if I may, Chair, just before we vote, to confirm that there's no
Oh,
one
yes, thank you.
online to speak to this item, since it
It is
is
an action item.
meant to be a
Sorry, I'm getting over
public
it.
forum.
Nope, I'm getting ahead.
That's all good.
I get ahead first.
And we do not have anyone signed up at this time, and no one's online from the phone.
Great, thank you, Director
Okay,
Spencer.
great.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain just because I work there.
I will-
Looking forward to doing the work.
I, for
With you.
myself, just with the note that I am on the UPWP committee, but as a non-voting member in my professional role, so
Okay,
we'll say aye.
great, thank you. So 5 ayes, 1 abstention. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director's report.
Moving at blazing speed tonight.
Go Val, go Val.
Val,
Yeah.
how much time do we have?
I'll start out with some somber news. It was hard to hear today, but we did hear from a fellow commissioner that Justine Sears is stepping down from the commission. We're seeking the exact date of that, but I believe it's as of today. Justine's well represented the Old North End and supported a range of livability issues that I think we all share an interest in and will carry on. So thanks for all of her service. Want to give a shout out to the team who battled the storm this weekend. I thought the team did a remarkably good job. We called a ban, the last night of the storm. We were able to clean it up quickly. We were prepared for school to happen on Monday, but welcome the opportunity for the kids to enjoy a snow day and come back to school on Tuesday. Other pieces that I want to call your attention to in the director's report, the wastewater plant upgrades are underway. I was very excited to update the commission on that the first phase, the $18 million project focusing on headworks, which is the front part of the treatment train at our wastewater plants. I signed the contract and we had a pre-construction meeting last week. So we should visibly start seeing construction in a month or two. A lot of lead items, long lead time on some of the initial equipment that needs to be purchased. We will be to you at the next meeting on Battery Street. And the update on regional bike share that you saw in the report is obviously unfortunate news that the regional bike share vendor Bird notified CATMA that they're not returning to serve the area in 2025. We have had conversations with a local business owner who wants to expand their automated bike rental service into a bit more of a bike share system. We'll see if they can manage some incremental growth this year and then evaluate over the course of the year how we want to ensure that bike share or accessible bike systems are available to the public. So that's the quick update. Rob, is there anything else?
I did leave one thing out when you asked the question about next steps for some of the bond outreach. I completely forgot that we'll have 3 vignette videos coming out on social media across departmental effort. We're very excited about it. Thanks to some good collaboration from a really talented staff member on the park side. We've got some videos coming out about the water bond, the lake bond, and the GO bond, specifically focused on fleet needs, with Chief LaChance focused on that end, and then Megan Moyer focused on the water and lake bonds. So it's going to be a really neat couple minutes, and hopefully you look at it, share it, and let us know what you think.
And I didn't really touch on the resolution of a 24-year-old item at 201 Flint Avenue, but remarkable that we all collectively have solved that. The city purchased the property January 31st. We'll work over the course of the year to set up a soil management operation there and unite our disparate and underinvested soil management areas into a modern facility. So, good, exciting progress across the board.
Excellent. Any questions specifically on the director's report before we move to commissioner items? Seeing none, commissioner items. Start over on the left with Commissioner Davis.
Okay. First, I appreciate all the efforts taken to alert people to the snow ban and all of that. That was great. 2 things I think that kind of came up from that. One, I think the link to the parking information on the first page was broken. It took me to a broken page.
Was that on Facebook?
No, this was the email that I got through the Burlington work account.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to note that. And then there was a person, I think, in my neck of the woods that put something on Front Porch Forum about the parking garages being full and them not being able to find a place to park. I guess, 1, did that happen this time? And 2, what should someone do in that situation?
Yeah, I am aware that this time the parking garages filled up. I think the magnitude of the storm, the advance warning, and the fact that we had Sunday typically free, but also for the band, it was going to be free at night. Then President's Day being free, I think, really alerted and attracted people to the notion of taking advantage, getting off the roads. We do make sure to call out, and certainly we can call it out more extensively for, especially when there's going to be a likelihood of full garages, that there are other garages people can park at. They're private, they're going to be different priced. We do have a map of most parking resources on our website, parkburlington.com, but also burlingtonvt.gov/parking, where you can take a look as a resident of all the different parking resources that are available. It's fairly cumulative. It's probably a 10-year-old effort at this point, so inevitably, while we've tried to keep the rates updated, inevitably some ownership things may have changed, but I think it gives the public a snapshot of what the other opportunities are. So in that email that came out from VT Alert and on social media, it does say to check this map for all parking. I think it says something like for all parking opportunities, including private. But to that point, if people are having a hard time, we want to make sure they feel empowered to park early, and then if they can't find parking at our resources, they'll avail themselves of a neighbor's or private garages.
Okay. And then I think this kind of came up last month when we talked about the overall street maintenance, but I realized that, like, we went cross-country skiing on the bike path after the storm, which was really nice. But I think, and I forget the name of the director of the street maintenance that was here last month.
Lee Perry.
Lee Perry. He, I think, mentioned that they're planning on putting like GPS trackers on the large trucks to let people know when things are plowed, but not the smaller, I think, tractors. And I was thinking that if people knew when the bike path was plowed versus not, it might be nice for that sort of recreation.
Does Parks have a resource for that?
Parks does update their social media, so they handle the bike path plowing.
Oh, okay. I didn't
They'll
realize that.
often call out on social media their strategies, and I think often they're leaving one side unplowed, one side plowed, to allow for different kinds of recreation. I don't know if they have, and I jumped the gun, maybe Director Spencer knows, I'm not aware of them using other resources, but at this point, social media and possibly their website, but I'd have to confirm on that one.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's great to know.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm not sure if this is the case because I can never get the light to trip the way that I needed to verify, but the light at the Champlain Parkway Lakeside intersection was the right turn only. I mentioned like a few months back that sometimes people would go too far up in the right lane and then not be able to see the arrow. But I think the sign, well, I think it may have been fixed. I think the light on the right-hand light that's on the actual crossbar thing, not the one that's to the side on the side of the road, now has 4 lights instead of 3, I think. So I couldn't tell, but I assume that's to make a right green arrow. Anyway, so I think it's fixed, which would be awesome, but so mostly I wanted to call out, hey, I think it's fixed, that's great.
Yeah.
But if it's
But
not.
it's still the no turn on red, but there's the arrow, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because I've had situations where waiting behind people that go too far forward.
Yeah.
And then they can't see what was originally on the right-hand side of the road to go right.
Right.
And then I think something was added, because it's a 4-light thing instead of a 3-light thing, so I'm thinking that's the.
Right. I'm not sure that we've changed the actual signal head. I can double check, but if there is an issue with, we can expand the MyoVision, the camera technology for detection. We can expand the zone so that if someone doesn't park or stop in the appropriate place, that the vehicle will still trip the light.
Well, I don't think it was that. It was tripped. It was
Okay.
that the person
The
was too
person
far
couldn't
forward to
see.
know that they
Right.
could turn right, because it does say no right on red. So I
see.
thought, anyway, I thought it was fixed. I think it might be fixed, but I
Okay.
couldn't, I would wait in the right lane, and I didn't want to wait forever to see if it would ultimately do that. I kept getting just like the double green, so it wasn't relevant.
Right. Well, feel free to follow up directly if you notice a specific situation that is still problematic.
Okay.
We're happy to follow up offline and get it addressed.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think it's fixed, but yeah,
Yeah.
let you know if it's not.
Great.
And that's all I had.
Commissioner Neal-Blanco?
Great. There was an email that came into all of us about stop signs on Foster and Home Avenue. Just want to check that was, because I didn't see it on the the agenda, and then I thought, oh, what's going on? I think Rob forwarded it to staff, or someone responded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
staff was looking at the intersection of Home and Foster and South Crest to see whether or not the side street approaches, that the Home Avenue approaches still warranted stop signs, or whether the Home Ave approaches should no longer have stop signs. We have done some technical review and think there's justification for that. However, there are some considerations of pedestrian access across Home Avenue. There are grade considerations there based on the feedback we received from the public, and my desire to look at the neighborhood more holistically once the parkway is completed, that I thought it was best to put this evaluation on pause and to look at it later once the parkway is completed. I communicated that to President Travers, the City Council President who lives in the neighborhood, as well as we followed up individually with each of the folks who had communicated with us and told them of our situation. A number of them had said they were planning to come to public forum. My guess is that our response was sufficient and well received enough that they did not feel the need to have to come to public forum.
Good job. Thank you for being responsive. I appreciate that. And thanks, Val. I think it was you who forwarded it. Thanks. I just lost it. But no, I think great job on the snow cleanup. There's always that after the snow is cleaned up and the plows go through, one who rides one's bike maybe starts noticing the enormous potholes that are waiting for March. So for another day, of course. And I think I've gotten some questions already about the Battery Street project, so looking forward to his information in anticipation of next month, knowing that might get a little bit more public participation. But great job. We're okay staffing-wise in the shop with maintenance and streets, and I saw the snow blowers were out too, which I know are always prone to more moving parts, more issues. Yeah.
You are a very knowledgeable commissioner. Yes, we are generally fully staffed with our team. There may be one vacancy and one person out on medical leave, but generally, the piece I'm really appreciative of is just how people help from every division. So we had 2 rolling teams. We only have enough folks in street maintenance to run one team in the tractors and in the trucks. So when we have to run 24/7 operation, we pull from wastewater, we pull from water, we pull from traffic, we pull from equipment maintenance, sometimes even from customer service. And it is an all hands on deck affair, which in my mind, it's great when the whole team is rowing the same boat. And it is a great team effort. So we'll pass along the
Yeah,
compliments.
good job. Thanks. That's all. Great.
Commissioner Montano?
I was thinking about the status, right, the actual quality of the streets data portal we got a chance to see today. Just to clarify, that exact data view isn't available to the public, or is it?
It is.
It is live now.
All right.
It is live now. It was rolled out as a feature for the general obligation bond, and will be, for as long as that's effective and responsive and updated, we'll absorb that onto our construction site, which right now has the construction portal and downtown detour maps, as well as links to a variety of kind of mega projects that we have underway. But I think that'll be a prominent feature of that kind of landing area, for sure. Yeah. We also have similar subpages, paving and sidewalks. That'll be updated as our construction season progresses and those plans are approved by council. But that's probably another likely place that map would theoretically live.
All right, that's fantastic. I'll have to take a look at that.
Commissioner Barr?
Sure. I guess I also want to echo the thoughts of how great the cleanup crews and the multi-division, everybody worked together. It's fantastic to see that all the times that the weather forecasters say that we're going to get this big, huge nor'easter, and we're ramping up, we're planning, and it takes a lot of time and planning for that. But then when it finally hits, to see the crew in action, and I stupidly was up through the night looking out, watching. My wife, she laughs because I'm that old retired guy that winds the clocks, walks around. But I'm just watching it. I just loved it, and I just because I can sleep all day. I'm retired. But I just wanted to make sure, Lee, I'm sure he's watching at home, just how great they did. And I appreciate you guys.
Vice Chair Fox?
I will quickly echo what everyone said about the snow clearing. I thought the communication was really excellent too. Like even the stuff about the changeover to the snow blowers and how that would mean that the cycle was going to be a little bit longer. I was like, oh, I know exactly what that means now. But I think even that level of detail, I love it. I'm not sure how much other members of the public care, but I think that's awesome. And I want to relate it quickly to the general obligation bond question, because you know what that bond helps us buy? Our plows, our street maintenance vehicles. And so, I just feel like that was a highlight of why that bond is so important, because it's crucial for our team to be able to do that. They need that equipment. So beyond that, I also had a Champlain Parkway thing, and it might be a little complicated, so I'm sorry. Intersection of Flynn Ave and the Parkway, when there's a train going by, there's an extended red, right? So that people don't go towards the tracks and have a queue, right? I feel like that's a weird fact that I know, and I can't remember why, but it seems to lead to a lot of confusion and frustration and people running the red lights because they're like, why am I stopped? Because they can't see the train over there, right?
So heading west?
Right. But so when there's a train going by, every light except for the eastbound one is red. So you can't turn right to head to City Market. But that also means if you're going straight on the Parkway, you can't go straight, even though you're not going towards the train. And so there was a queue up on the Parkway, which I understand, but it's also like there were like 2 or 3 buses just sitting there waiting to go straight to GMT.
Right.
And it just felt so silly. Like, I don't know how else to put it. And I can imagine if you're not like a nerd like us, you don't know what's going on. Like, why am I sitting here and all these people are running these red lights? So just a situation I thought was worth bringing up, and I'm not sure how we communicate that to the public. And because the train doesn't go by super frequently, right? It's like once or twice a day, right?
There's a fair number of trains.
Okay.
The Amtrak goes twice a day, and then there's freight, a lot of movement between the tank farm and the yard. So.
Yeah, I just feel like it's maybe a crash waiting to happen with the way people are, like, they're waiting, and they're like, oh, why isn't the light going? And they're going straight. And if 2 people happen to do that at the same time.
We can definitely bring this feedback back to the Parkway team and evaluate the signal settings that we have there. Yes, and it was coordinated with the gates such that we wouldn't have an unsafe situation at
Which
the
is like so cool that it's coordinated, but unless you know that fun fact, you're like, why am I sitting at this light?
That's right.
So that was one thing. The second one I've brought up before, but 2 of my constituents have also brought it up to me. The bike lane across from BPD, so like, I always forget the name of the tiny street, but as you're curving onto North Ave, Sherman Street. So the northbound bike lane, when it was restriped the last time, it was striped kind of poorly, and it's super narrow, and it's causing vehicles to just like cut the corner and veer into the bike lane. And so, yeah, I mean, I know we're not gonna restripe that for some time, but just to flag it and have it on the radar to be fixed at some point as soon as possible. Yeah, because it didn't used to be like that when it was striped normally, even though it's an unprotected bike lane. I feel like the way it used to function when it was the proper width, it's funky right now. Yeah, it's
Robin,
This
I
way.
don't
Oh, that
follow
turn,
on
yeah,
that.
oh,
yeah. You can even actually
I've
see
been
it.
crossing this area a lot.
It almost
lately,
needs to be
so-
protected on that corner.
Yeah.
Which
There
would
was a
be
way to
great,
do it.
but I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you can
Curb
almost see
cuts
it
or
in
something.
Google Maps at this point. Yeah, how it's. Yeah, it's just something happened the last time it got restriped that it just got restriped badly for some reason. So yeah, just bringing that up.
Okay. We'll
and-
pass it along to traffic for their spring work.
Okay. That's it.
Great. I have a few items. A lot of it is kudos. I first want to give kudos to Philip and Julia for coming to a Rose Street meeting on a potential project that may or may not come to fruition, but just wanted to thank them for their time with that particular one on the street that I live on. Of course, kudos on the winter stuff. I think really want to echo both the cleanup and the communication. I think the pre-warnings were really helpful. Like, hey, we're probably going to do a parking ban on Sunday. It was great.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. And then I think on the cleanup, the one thing I noticed for the folks operating the sidewalk plows, it's during a time where folks are bringing out their garbage and recycling. And I noticed, I felt bad that I saw even just on my street and other streets, the sidewalk plow operator having to get out of the unit, move those things. So I'd be curious if communication on that, I think, moving forward would be really helpful. Both, suggestions on where folks can put it when there is snow, because I think there's a lot of probably confusion of where to do it, and just also make sure you don't put it in the sidewalk, because then they have to get out, stop, move it. I think I saw 5 times just on one of the
Yeah.
times they came on my street. I recognize there isn't a lot of space because there's a lot of snow, but even just put it in your driveway or somewhere else that is out of the way, because that's impacting obviously their ability to clear that.
It's good feedback. We'll definitely talk to the team to see
Yeah.
what they recommend too and what their experience was.
Excellent.
Could I add something to
Yeah.
that? I do wonder in that case because I noticed the same thing, that it might make sense if there's a night of a snow ban, that following morning, there isn't pickup, like that's a part of the snow ban. Because
I know my trash operator did give me a call that, my regular pickup was on Monday, and they called and said, you're gonna bring it out on Tuesday. I know that limits stuff, but I think people would be pretty understanding if they were told not to put it on a particular day, and
But
you all
there's
can adjust your resources.
So many different private contractors who haul the trash here.
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't even realize that, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't rip that.
Have you brought that up before, Peg?
Yeah, don't rip that Band-Aid off.
What about impact fees? Sorry.
But,
That's
yeah.
for next time.
Just at least, having folks put it somewhere else. I
Right.
felt bad they had to get out every single time.
Yeah, in the
Feedback.
Lakeside neighborhood, Monday is the recycling day, and that's what I am always exposed to, and I just didn't put mine out because I didn't really feel like there was a safe place to put it for anyone, so yeah, that makes sense.
The last piece I just wanted to bring up, it's related to safety. We talk a lot about traffic safety and road safety. The past 6 weeks, I just wanted to highlight the Burlington Police Department puts on an awesome community academy of educating about how the police department works. And I was there as a resident, but in the intros, everybody was talking about why they were there, and I talked about our commission of, we look at public safety from this other lens, so it was really interesting to see how public safety is done here across the city. So just want to highlight that. I'm assuming the police department will probably do it again in future years. This was, I think, the 9th or 10th year that they've done it, and definitely encourage folks to join the 18 hours of Wednesdays for the 6 weeks, learning about it.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.